Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the January 28th, 2018 Triple Threat Special Edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mikey B. WWE. And this is a special edition, Triple Threat Edition, as I said, because first of all, I'm covering the last 3 weeks of important events in the WWE, with the centerpiece being Monday Night Raw's 25th anniversary special that occurred just this past Monday. So I'm just going to cover the important events leading up to this momentous occasion on Monday. So dating back now to, first off, the 8th of January on Monday Night Raw, there, as I was kind of saying in my recent podcast prior, there wasn't a whole lot of activity going on prior to this build-up to the 25th anniversary of Raw and to the Royal Rumble event, which is also featuring an historic first-time ever women's Royal Rumble match in addition to the men's. So those two things have really been the focus going on in the WWE this past month or so. So anyways, but kicking things off on the 8th of January, one of the few notable things which occurred on that program was after following a match between Rhino and Samoa Joe, which Samoa Joe was victorious. He made a point of claiming that he was going to enter the Royal Rumble match and appeared to target John Cena when he was told that John Cena would be appearing in the match as well. So I thought that was important to keep an eye on. The WWE certainly likes to give us some teasers leading up to events like the Royal Rumble, but they also do things to try and mislead us at the same time. So we don't know if this is a legitimate build-up potential or if this is just, again, a bit of a smokescreen and something else altogether is going to happen. So I want to mention that because you'll see how this ties in other activity in recent weeks too. But beyond that, there wasn't a whole lot else going on besides The Miz had returned after being away for, I believe, 6 weeks. So he made his return on Miz TV and also demanded that he wants his Intercontinental title rematch against Roman Reigns. So moving on to SmackDown the following evening, which was the 9th of January, there was Daniel Bryan after Sheldon Benjamin and Chad Gable had come out and cut a promo to the audience. This is the first time they'd come out and they had slandered the audience, so which is implying that there is a character heel turn going on with these two, which is notable because anytime you have a significant change from a heel to a babyface or a babyface to a heel, in other words, a good guy to a bad guy or bad guy to a good guy, oftentimes that individual or tag team or faction, they're going to get a push from the company. So Daniel Bryan, General Manager Daniel Bryan on SmackDown Live also announced that there would be a best 2 out of 3 falls matchup against the Usos at the Royal Rumble for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. So that's the heel turn is notable because, like I said, this could suggest that WWE has some plans in store for Chad Gable and Sheldon Benjamin. I mean, as they should, truthfully, since Sheldon Benjamin is a decorated champion, former champion in the WWE, and Chad Gable is clearly one of the top young in-ring workers in the company. Whenever you watch him perform, he's can go sort of with just about anybody in terms of inside the ring. So now, okay, glossing over that week, moving on to the next week of January the 15th on Monday Night Raw. There was, after mentioning from the previous week how Samoa Joe seemed to call out John Cena, Samoa Joe was nowhere to be found. But then after during a promo with Elias, he also mentioned John Cena and about wanting to go after him in the Royal Rumble match. So, this led me to believe that either there's going to be a few other wrestlers calling out John Cena and making it kind of unclear what direction the company is going to go with John Cena for WrestleMania, because he's going to be on the card. You can't have WrestleMania and John Cena being healthy without him being featured on the main card. So it's interesting to note that Elias called out John Cena on this particular week with no Samoa Joe in sight. And as after doing a bit of reading, it appeared that Samoa Joe, I'll just skip ahead just for a moment. Samoa Joe didn't appear on the 25th anniversary of Monday Night Raw, which you would think he certainly would have if he was doing fine, as just about every other superstar, not only on Monday Night Raw, but the company seemed to appear on that program. But after doing some reading, Samoa Joe appears to possibly be sidelined with injury and might miss the Royal Rumble matchup. On the WWE website, he's not featured among some of the top superstars competing who have already mentioned that they will be a part of the match. So it's interesting to see if now they're going to do a program with Elias and John Cena. I'm hoping that will just be a short-term program if that is the case, because that sounds like kind of a lame match for WrestleMania, if I'm being honest. So anyways, besides Elias's taunting of John Cena, we also learned that a key figure in the women's division will not be featured in the Royal Rumble match, which is the recently returned Paige, who is leading the faction called Absolution. And Paige is an interesting one. She is a former women's champion when it was under the Divas title. And Paige, to me, appeared to be one of the favorites entering this match, because for a few reasons. The first being that she, again, recently returned with a heel faction. So whenever you have that sort of a faction put together too, they're also going to be involved in a lot of big storylines. And with her being a former top champion, she was an interesting one to keep an eye on. But we learned that she is injured, has some sort of a neck injury, and will not participate in the Royal Rumble match. So she was someone who I thought was one of the early favorites going into the event. But since we now know she'll not be participating, she definitely won't be the victor later on this evening at the Royal Rumble. So besides this, we also learned that Bill Goldberg is the first person mentioned to be in the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2018. Goldberg, certainly his impact, I think, in the wrestling world is more than anything that got him inducted. As a wrestler, any wrestler I think will tell you that he's not a particularly good wrestler, and any longtime wrestling fan watching him, that he doesn't have a major skill set. He has a few moves that he does over and over, usually power moves that, and his matches are very short. And he's also, he's a former football player turned wrestler. He's not someone that is his whole career was based in wrestling training and everything. So he's never been someone I thought was particularly good, for the reason that he is a bit of a dangerous worker in the ring. He also is notoriously known as the person that ended Bret the Hitman Hart's career in the ring with a dangerous kick to the temple, which eventually led to a stroke for Bret Hart. So that's really a shame, because Bret Hart, to me, is the greatest wrestler ever, and if he would have been around for a few more years after, it would have been interesting to see what sort of programs he could have done, and with which current wrestlers he would have been able to work with. So anyways, but having said all that, Goldberg's impact during especially the Attitude Era, when the WWE was competing against the WCW, cannot be ignored. He was on an undefeated streak during some of those key years. His popularity was just huge, soaring through the roof, and it led to a lot of wrestling fans wanting to have a dream match between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bill Goldberg, which never did come to fruition. So anyways, good for you, Goldberg, that you're in the WWE Hall of Fame now. And lastly, on that edition of the 15th of January, Monday Night Raw, something else worth noting, during the main event, Seth Rollins was facing off against Finn Balor. And Seth Rollins was victorious in this match, but he wound up with his finishing move on the evening. He used his old foot stomp maneuver on Finn Balor, which it seemed that they got rid of that for a long time because it was pretty dangerous. And speaking of, after mentioning Goldberg, how dangerous his track record is in the ring with kind of hurting people and not being a very safe worker, Seth Rollins is probably the best current example of somebody who has hurt many wrestlers in the ring. Ending careers. He ended Sting's career, and he's just been generally unsafe a lot of times, which is a pity because you can tell he's really passionate about the business, and the company wants him to be successful. So it's really unfortunate that this keeps happening time and time again, and especially even one of these injuries occurred to Finn Balor, not this past year, back in 2016 at SummerSlam when they had the first ever Universal Championship match, which Finn Balor was victorious, but it resulted in him having to relinquish his title and being out of action for many, many months, for a good half a year, because of Seth Rollins' carelessness while working with him. So I don't know. That's just kind of ironic, I guess, that Finn Balor again was at the center of another dangerous Seth Rollins move. You could see Finn Balor getting up really groggy after the foot stomp and stumbly and being dizzy, which to me didn't seem like that was part of the story. Like, this was him legitimately looking groggy and disoriented. So yeah, it's just too bad that Seth Rollins is still working unsafely in the ring. So hopefully he can fix this and not keep hurting people and putting them out of action. So, okay, now moving on to SmackDown the following evening of January the 16th. This episode, they wound up, first off, when they were doing the United States title tournament that they've been kind of slowly chipping away at during these past weeks on SmackDown Live. They wound up saying, okay, you know what, we're going to do the semifinals and the finals tonight on SmackDown instead of the original plans, which were to have the finals appear at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. I think just due to the fact that the Royal Rumble pay-per-view card is already stacked enough with enough matches already on the card, unless they were going to make the event 5 hours long like WrestleMania, which is not an exaggeration, folks. Unless they were to do that, then they couldn't have this match. So they decided to fast track and do it all on SmackDown. So we had at first Jinder Mahal qualify into the finals by defeating Xavier Woods. And then as well, Bobby Roode defeated Mojo Rawley, who had defeated the week prior Zack Ryder, his former tag team partner. So the finals were then set up for Jinder Mahal and Bobby Roode. And Bobby Roode wound up being successful in the main event that evening to capture his first WWE Championship, which was I had a feeling it would be this finals, though I thought that Jinder Mahal would win the title to keep him a bit more relevant holding a title, since he had just been WWE champion for the past for a good 6-month period or so. But Jinder Mahal was lacking his trusted Singh brothers to help him out at ringside. They were banned from ringside from Daniel Bryan. So Bobby Roode was able to secure the victory, and congratulations to him. Certainly a promising young talent in the company, and I wasn't also too surprised because he's a guy that you could see also them giving a push to if they weren't going to keep going with the momentum they'd already built with Jinder Mahal. So congratulations to Bobby Roode on that one. Now, finally, moving over to the 25th anniversary of Raw this past Monday, which was January the 22nd, 2018. Lots was going on. It would take a very long time to mention all the different personalities and former wrestlers that appeared on this program. So I am just going to get to the main gist of the program. The show did open, though, with a nice nostalgic feel as Jerry the King Lawler and good old JR Jim Ross opened the show standing ringside at the original venue where Monday Night Raw began in, I believe, the Manhattan Center in New York, which is a very small, a lot more intimate venue than a lot of the big arenas that WWE events take place in now. So it started with them just introducing the show, and then they quickly cut over to Michael Cole and the Monday Night Raw announce team as they were in Brooklyn, nearby Brooklyn, I believe, at the Barclays Arena. So they were basically announcing that there's going to be events going on between both locations on the evening. Starting with Michael Cole, the first moments were then Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon providing a video montage of some of the best highlights of the past 25 years, and then introducing their dad, the chairman and CEO and creator of the World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon. And I gotta say, this was certainly a great pick for a place to hold both of these events. New York City, I've gone on record saying on other podcasts months ago that New York City is possibly the finest, gives the finest crowds for wrestling, maybe anywhere. There's a few cities that always seem to just provide that electricity whenever wrestling takes place there. Also Toronto, Chicago, places like this. So New York was a great choice because you could hear the crowd vocally support Vince McMahon as he was introduced and thanking him, and just giving him just a wonderful ovation. And this was before Vince McMahon then decided to turn on the Brooklyn audience by calling them cheap after being given what he deemed was a cheap plaque which was supposed to be a gift from on a GoFundMe account from the wrestling fans and from Shane and Stephanie. So the crowd then quickly turned on Vince after he called them cheap, and was saying that Vince then proceeded to say that he had no one else to thank, not even his family or anybody besides himself. And then now cue the biggest wrestling pop of the night, and one of the biggest ones in recent years, as Stone Cold Steve Austin's music hit. And we were all treated to a nostalgic run down memory lane as Stone Cold and Vince came face to face, and Stone Cold then after cheersing with beers with both Shane and Vince, decided to stun them both in the middle of the ring. The crowd's going completely bananas. If you ever want to watch any, I mean, this is sort of the essence of the Attitude Era. Whenever you see any highlights of the Attitude Era, Stone Cold, Steve Austin, and The Rock are two of the guys at the forefront there, and they just got humongous electric ovations everywhere they would perform. And so, yeah, it really had that feeling, that nostalgic feeling of the Attitude Era, which was one of the great eras in WWE. And wrestling audiences just don't have that same electricity now that they did then, and that's certainly partly to blame on the programming going on, but that's a different discussion altogether. But regardless, it was a really fitting, great opening to the 25th anniversary, and everyone seemed to love that. So now cutting over to the smaller venue, we've been looking forward to months with The Undertaker appearing at the 25th anniversary. And immediately once they made that news public, the WWE made that news public, myself and surely just about every wrestling fan out there started wondering, what's this going to mean? Is Undertaker now not going to be retired? Is he going to fight at WrestleMania again? What's happening with him? So JR introduced The Undertaker, and then also that was accompanied with a video montage of some of his greatest moments in the past 25 years. So Undertaker came down and basically just delivered a speech talking about some of the names that he's buried over his time of the 25 years. Something interesting to note, though, which I'm sure most viewers missed. I picked up on this just because I guess I was really focusing on it, and I know how some of the workings go with the ringside commentary and things like this. A lot of people don't realize that the ringside commentators, and even on Monday Night Raw, the other commentators who are seated near the stage, they're wearing mics and they're constantly in communication with the creative backstage, with Vince and whomever else is making the key storyline decisions. And in a rare sloppy move, after Undertaker's speech of saying how all these people will rest in peace, and you could see Undertaker even biting his tongue and being a little emotional while saying his famous words, "Rest in peace." You could hear JR ask very softly. He said, "You want something here?" Meaning he was asking backstage, "Do you want me to add something here after that speech by the Undertaker? You want me to say something over the to the television audience?" And there was a brief pause following this, and then you hear JR then say loudly. This time he says, "Was that a warning?" So, this is all, you never know what this means when you hear something like this. You don't know if JR was just improvising that on the spot, if they told JR to say this. All we can hope for, though, is that Undertaker will be involved in one more match for sure at WrestleMania. One person who would be great to see him fight at WrestleMania, whom he's never fought at WrestleMania ever, which is a bit surprising, would be John Cena. This match, I think, would right away you could build the entire pay-per-view card around. So that would be certainly a dream match for a lot of wrestling fans. But just to see the Undertaker in action once again, I think everyone would love. And if they don't have him compete at WrestleMania, it really is quite a tease from the company then, because everyone was sort of sadly under the belief that he was retired after his last year WrestleMania match against Roman Reigns. So it's very difficult to say right now. Hopefully we'll get some clarity this evening at Royal Rumble, or if not tonight, in the coming weeks soon, about what's going to happen with him, if anything's going to happen. But it was a strange segment. Like I said, especially when I picked up on this part with JR asking backstage if he should add anything further. So it was all kind of strange, and hoping now that this is going to result in something more. Okay, so besides this, there was lots of backstage moments featuring old personalities, wrestling personalities. There was a card game going on with wrestlers like the APA and Jeff Hardy, Heath Slater, Rhino, Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase. There was another backstage moment with Jonathan Coachman, Harvey Whippleman, Teddy Long, Brother Love, and the Boogeyman, to name some. So there were a lot of wrestlers appearing for this very special occasion. Then out on the stage, they introduced us many of the former Raw general managers, including Eric Bischoff, William Regal, John Laurinaitis, and then also Daniel Bryan. A major match on the card for the 25th anniversary, which was advertised prior, was the Intercontinental Championship title rematch between The Miz and current champion Roman Reigns. The Miz wound up in his true heel fashion, making a dirty move and removing a turnbuckle when no one was looking, throwing Roman Reigns in there. Well, actually, Roman Reigns trying to spear The Miz, hit the buckle on his own momentum. So The Miz was able to recapture the Intercontinental title, which was, I think, sort of expected. The crowd went absolutely nuts for this, though. So you can see how Roman Reigns, even though with his recent reuniting with the Shield in recent months, and becoming a bit of a babyface with the audience, he's still not beloved by all in the WWE universe. That's very much safe to say. So, and this also doesn't surprise me, because this kind of opens now the door for Roman Reigns to maybe go after one of the higher profile titles on WrestleMania, which, for a long time, ever since last year's WrestleMania, it's been kind of widely speculated that Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar would have a WrestleMania rematch from the matchup they were set to have 2 years ago at WrestleMania. I'm still hoping this does not happen. I would love to see anything but this happen for all of these wrestlers involved, just because it's going to get booed again. And I don't know. Again, they already sort of did this and had to do the quick Seth Rollins Money in the Bank cash in that night to kind of salvage, I think, that match. So I don't know. I hope this doesn't happen, but with Miz reclaiming his title, I doubt Roman Reigns will be going back for that Intercontinental title anytime soon. So, and Miz they're quite comfortable having the Miz as the Intercontinental title placeholder, because he's just such a steady presence and such a good heel. So that was a big moment on the show. We also had Christian from the old tag team of Edge and Christian. He appeared hosting a show in the ring called The Peep Show, featuring Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins, with Cesaro and Sheamus coming out and interfering. So sadly, we didn't hear a whole lot from Christian, even though it was nice to see him back in a WWE ring. And then they did it during another segment. They introduced some of the most famous former women wrestlers in the company, with some of the likes of being the Bella Twins, Maurice, Kelly, Jacqueline, Tori Wilson, Terry Runnels, and also Trish Stratus, who got the biggest ovation, to name a few there. We got more of Elias and John Cena bickering at one another, so certainly hinting that there's going to be a little program with these two, if not, and again, as I said earlier on this podcast here, hopefully not a WrestleMania matchup, because that would be a little bit weak. So, and in addition to this, we also got a DX reunion at the smaller venue at the Manhattan Center. So there was just a lot of appearances. There wasn't a whole lot actually that really furthered the storyline. It was just really a nice nostalgia feeling on this program. Besides, of course, the Intercontinental title changing hands. And they were also simultaneously, building up their momentum for the Royal Rumble this coming Sunday. Well, actually, tonight now. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Then the following night on SmackDown, I think they were, there was so much excitement and energy focused on the 25th anniversary of Monday Night Raw that SmackDown Live was certainly a bit lackluster. One of the notable things, though, heading into their best 2 out of 3 falls match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, there was a singles match between Chad Gable and Jey Uso, which Chad Gable won cleanly. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens with this with their tag team title match tonight. So anyways, folks, that's the recap of all the television programming. Stay tuned. I'm going to broadcast a Royal Rumble predictions podcast very shortly. So thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe below if you liked what you heard today. So thanks again, and see you next time.